Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. I'm Luc from Zeenea, sitting together with Dina.
Good morning, everyone.
So today we're going to talk about data culture, and we'll try to provide you with some insights on why it's so important. A few logistical points. Please stay on mute on your respective computers, otherwise it will be too noisy. Should you have any question or a request to get the slides or the video of this webinar, just send an email to webinar@zeenea.com. Some questions to warm up. Dina, from your point of view, what is the difference between democracy and dictatorship?
That's a good question. In a democratic system, people are more invested in their country and help in choosing people who become their actual leaders. It's based on a system ruled by the people. In a dictatorship, it's the rule of an individual, so where people do not have the right to choose who becomes their leader, and they don't have the decision power to shape the future of their country.
Okay, thank you for this first answer. Another one for you. What is the difference between a dictionary and Wikipedia?
So a dictionary is about a word or a term where you can find its meaning, perhaps the origin or the history behind it. It's usually built by academies where decisions are made internally, where it takes a really long time for the actual outcome of the book. A Wikipedia is not a dictionary. The goal is actually to create a real encyclopedia. It's about a place, a person, a concept, or an event. These entries are able to be expanded thanks to crowdsourcing and thanks to the help of knowledge people that's really open and welcome for contributions.
All right, very interesting answers. The reasons for asking those questions are the following. There is a big similarity between political regimes and the way you build your data governance. So we'll try to demonstrate that it makes sense to take this paradigm. And second, there are two ways of building a data governance, or you build it on a very top-down approach. And it's more like an academical point of view in building terms with only a few set of people, where Wikipedia is, as you mentioned, a crowdsource platform. And at Zeenea, we aim to be the Wikipedia of data, as simple as that. So there are four political regimes we will be talking about: dictatorship, aristocracy, anarchy, and democracy. Let's start with dictatorship. It's a very common pattern, especially in certain segments. Hierarchy is predominant and drives the access to data with strong accreditations. Controlling access to data seems to be the main driver for those companies. It's a typical top-down approach. We see those regimes in different cases. First one, the highly regulated businesses like the health industry, where of course to access to personal data is a big thing, and hopefully only a few set of people are allowed to access to those data. But we also see that regime in those companies that have triggered their data governance with compliance because of the enforcement of the RGPD, CCPA, PII. Those companies started a while ago by trying to put their data governance in line with the regulation. And they tend to think that the data governance now in 2020, it's about the same story. And they hope that they can create value with this type of governance. So the CDO is between a rock and a hard place. He has to stick to compliance. And on the other hand, he's being asked to create value. And it's a very defensive way of doing things. And we think it doesn't work this way. And by leveraging those data governance platforms they installed a while ago is not the way to do it. Aristocracy, it's a little bit more flexible, as a number of people are allowed to access to data, and this number is bigger. These people are typically experts. They have a certain knowledge on what they're looking for and a certain knowledge on the data they're dealing with. This is typically what we have seen in the business intelligence wave 20 years ago. People using business objects, and nowadays Tableau and Click are the ones who are allowed to play with the targeted subsets of data, but to answer predefined business questions. So typically a marketing department can look at the churn, look at the increase of revenue, and the CDO would naturally first talk to those guys to put data governance in place, because they have already best practices, they know how to do it. But again, we don't think it's going to work for one big reason, is that they will create metadata silos on top of already existing data silos. Anarchy is a very common pattern. We see in a lot of companies, we see innovation labs or innovative projects building shadow IT because they are not properly served by the IT department. And by proceeding this way, you have a lot of technologies and practices popping up everywhere without any control, and they put their company in big danger. We also see that when companies have tried to build a democratic way of building their data governance, but without any regulation. And the last place where we see this anarchy is startups, where compliance is far away from their concerns, of course. Democracy seems like the ideal, right? Anyone can access to any data in the company, making possible to make to create value locally or for the company. They can investigate patterns. So it seems to be the ideal world. You get rid of data silos. The GAFAs have done that, and they're very successful. But it's very easy to say, but not easy to do. In terms of tooling, you need a flexible, modern, non-intrusive, connected, and easy to use data catalog platform. But it's not going to happen within a day. You will do that in a very incremental way. You will start small and then scale fast. This is our way of approaching data governance. We have run last year in Q4 a very interesting workshop with DPOs, and the outcome is very interesting. They said the tooling, of course, it's important, but that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is about culture, because people need to be aware of certain things in order to benefit from data governance. Dina, can you do something for me?
Yeah, sure.
I would ask you to write down what we call at Zeenea the Data Citizens Constitution. What would you write down?
Sure. Well, the first one being know what data is managed within the company. The second constitution is know the meaning and the context, the origin, possible treatments of these data. The third constitution, know the sensitivity of the data. Fourth, know where the data is and how to access it. The fifth, have information on the quality of the data. The sixth, know who else uses or is interested in the data. And lastly, know who to contact for any comments about the data.
Oh, sounds like a great constitution, but you've forgotten something, Dina. You only talked about rights. What about the duties? Let's dig into that. Of course, data citizens have rights, but they have very strong duties as well. As a data citizen, you have to comply not only with regulations like RGPD or CCPA, but also with corporate rules like dealing with sensitive business data, for example. The DPO who attend to our workshop mentioned that one of the biggest challenges for them is to make those citizens aware of these constraints. As a data citizen, you can benefit from crowdsourced data, but you have a very important duty on top of that. You have to bring your own food. You have to contribute as well. As a data citizen, you can produce as much as you consume in a high quality approach, but you need to provide the expected information as well. You need to stay to help others to stay informed on the datasets you're knowledgeable for. And finally, you're not only a consumer, you're a producer, and then you have to identify yourself as a potential help for the other employees. When you look at the different profiles of data citizens, the person on top of everything is the CDO. A CDO has a lot in his or her plate. Usually he's a member of the exec team. He has to build a data-driven culture in order to following some goals, stick with the company strategy and serve the corporate issues, build the appropriate technical stack to feed the value chain of the data governance, discuss with other people how to build in a lean way, step by step, this data governance. I think building blocks and having small victories rather than trying to address all issues upfront is the way CDOs should handle this data governance. And at Zeenea, we have a very perfect product offering for that. We have this team edition, which helps you to start small with a small subset of data stewards and business users and build the first business case and then scale afterwards. You may have encountered those type of people in your company, hopefully. There's a new job, which is called data steward. Data steward is in charge of the following things. Of course, they have to build this metadata management platform with the appropriate technologies. They're involved in the projects during their entire life cycle. For example, we see very often at customers verticalized data stewards. So you have data stewards that are delegated to certain projects to help them creating value with the data management platform. They are in charge of communication, so a good, maybe a good starting point for them would be to build this data constitution and communicate around it. But of course, they have traditional duties like data protection, taking care of the quality of data. But what we would advise to be successful is to put KPIs for which the data stewards will be in charge of, and regularly, keep track of those KPIs and do a very frequent factual reporting to the CDO in order to get more sponsorship and increase the reach of this data governance initiative. Data explorers, not to say data users, virtually it's everybody, you and me, you Dina, you're a data citizen, I am, everybody in the company. That's the ideal word in a very mature data-driven organization. But to be honest, this population will grow over time with a lean and agile approach. So again, successes will illustrate to each and every one that if they play the game, they will all benefit from this data governance. So we think that's the way to do it. Data is a common asset. Data are the company jewels, and we are all in charge of taking care of them. Our experience in being successful, we came across many verticals, many company sizes. You need people to buy in, and that's deals with communication and showing the first successes. Being completely in a dictatorship regime will fail. Even aristocracy will fail. You have to deal with a lot of complexity, but our advice there would be not to try to anticipate everything. Of course, you can upfront see some impediments. But our advice would be to adopt a test and learn approach and try to solve or bypass the impediments when you come across them. In terms of modus operandi, I like this sentence from Albert Einstein. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. So again, try to, of course, anticipate a little bit your problems, but just inspect and adapt, and get involvement from the people by showing value. So typically what we would advise to do is start with a nice MVP, an MVP that deals with something which is strategic for the company. It can be risky or it can create big value. So try to design this first MVP, involve the right people, get the right sponsorship, and then stick to the MVP and try to show the results, test and learn, validate your assumptions, get feedback, monitor your KPIs, and once your AVP is delivering value, then you can expand, mature your practices, enhance, involve more people, get more data in, and so on and so on. And by proceeding this way, you will build a very pragmatic, incremental data governance. So where to start? Because that's nice to show the concepts and the principles, but how we can help you. We've done that many times, so we know with our professional services how to proceed. First of all, try to write down the main objective of this MVP. It has to be in line with the corporate strategy, otherwise you won't obtain the necessary sponsorship. Try, of course, to identify the main challenges, and then behave in a very agile way, and don't forget the culture. As mentioned by the DPOs, don't forget the culture. It's about communication. So start small, identify the first data, people who are motivated in teams to start this MVP, start a lightweight but easy to understand communication plan around the initiative. Promote yourself, do some branding around the project. Of course, get the right tooling, not necessarily the most fancy ones. You need to move forward as quickly as possible and deliver value quickly. Try to set up some rules and processes and principles. Delegate responsibilities to the pilot team, and then enrich the data one day after the other. And once you have done achievements, communicate, monitor, and then go for the next steps. A little bit about our platform. So in the middle of the slide, you have our metadata management platform. So of course you can find in there all the features that you would expect in such a platform, like lineage, a business glossary, a very powerful sentence search engine, machine learning algorithm, etc., etc. And of course, by doing that, the platform is able to automate many things. But if you take a look at the left-hand side, you would understand a little bit how the product is architectured. Because we have completely API the platform, we can first get access to other existing metadata sources, because that's a reality. You may have in your company data dictionaries in place, data glossaries, a lot of Excel spreadsheets, everything that can feed this metadata management platform. But on top of that, we have built connectors to literally connect to any source of data. It can be big data platforms, it can be data on cloud providers, it can be data from your BI tools, of course, relational databases or non-relational, anything virtually. And with connecting to those platforms, of course, we feed and crowdsource and automate the data, the metadata. But we do some clever things like sampling and fingerprinting. And on the right-hand side, if you would consider a metadata management platform like if you would be a retailer, you have people in charge of maintaining this catalog. This is in the middle of the screen, sorry. But on the right-hand side, you would have people who would buy your products on an e-commerce platform. Exactly the same story for Zeenea. We are now building focus apps to serve business users who will consume the data through the metadata management platform. So this is more or less what the platform looks like, and we would be, of course, more than happy to do a demo. We'll do that in the next webinar, of course, but feel free to get back to us. In terms of product offer, we took the decision to be completely SaaS. So you don't have to deploy anything on your side except the connectors. And we've got two product offerings: the Team Edition, which aims to address small teams trying to create the first business cases with the first data stewards and some business users. So a perfect fit for that. And we have, of course, the Enterprise Edition, which aims more to address a wider range where we have multiple catalogs, multiple glossaries, a bigger number of users. And in terms of pricing model, you can start as small as 18,000 euros per year with 5 stewards and 50 explorers. And of course, on the Enterprise Edition, it's a user account-based model. So we hope you enjoyed this webinar. We would like to conclude with Steve Jobs, somebody we all like. You cannot order productivity. You have to provide the tools to people to make them better. So again, if you want to ask questions or get the slides or the video, send us an email to webinar@zeenea.com or info@zeenea.com. And we look forward to exchanging with you maybe in the next webinar or in a one-to-one demo. Have a very nice day. I think. Yeah.